opportunity to take some great pictures. Hold on, let me get this. We'll eat at 6 o'clock. So you can come anytime between 2 and whatever. And if you need to put your food in the refrigerator, I got a big refrigerator. I've got a freezer, double oven. So if you need in a microwave, so we can always, use all of those. And come hungry. Everybody brings a dish. We will have something up on Reddit so I can keep an idea of how many desserts are being brought, how many of appetizers, et cetera, and et cetera. The club does take care of the turkey and ham, all the drinks, and of course we have all of the paperware, the plates and forks and et cetera. It's a lot of fun, and this is a place that you can really socialize. You can have a great opportunity for a good photo op. So come. I don't know that we'll have live music this year. A lot of times we do have the live music also.
Our live musician is not coming.
Well, it's usually Rex does the live, and
Yep.
so does Fred's son. They do it. But this year, well, Fred, of course, passed away a couple of months ago, and I don't know if Rex is going to bring his keyboard or not. So, Dennis, would you like to offer some live music?
Well, only if I'll drive Rex.
But anyway, if you have any questions, just email me. And I hope that everybody comes. I've got enough people, usually for about 40 people in the house. So
All right.
Question.
While you're good, was there a question?
November SWIG meeting, is that falls on Thanksgiving? When was it moved to?
Give me 1 second. Let me pull my calendar. I'll tell you. I usually move it to the week before.
Yeah, I think it'll be the 17th, right?
Yeah, it'll be the 17th. I already have it moved on my calendar.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And the December
now,
one, December is okay. It's good. It's on the 29th, so we'll be okay there. All right.
October.
Any other questions about the Christmas party?
oh yeah.
All right, Margie?
Your wife, husband, partner, whatever, if just girlfriend, anything is invited. Anyone is invited. Your other half, I don't know.
Okay. Margie, did you want to mention the
Yes,
IHOP thing?
October the 20th at IHOP over there in Greensburg. We're going to have what we call the talk about. Bring whatever you would like to bring. Prints, and we'll look them over. If you want them critiqued, we'll be happy to critique them. If you just want to do a show and tell about it, that'll be fine too. Anything you may want to sell, anything you want to give away, any kind of subject you want to bring up. We're just going to get into IHOP 7 o'clock on October the 20th, and we're going to socialize. We're going to get together and get to know each other, because Zoom meetings, you don't get that one-on-one with people. And, if you got some new equipment for your camera, tripod, doesn't matter what, bring it along and let's get together and have a good time. Come hungry. You can eat there if you want. So 7 o'clock, October the 20th. I hope to see a lot of you there.
I'll be there after work.
I
think I can actually make them.
All right.
Everyone, don't forget to pick up your photos at Greenberg Art Center Monday, the October 17th, 10 to noon. And then Tuesday, October 18th, 5 to 8. They're open. I'm sure you can pick that up anytime, but those are the specific times that they told me. So.
All right. Can anyone volunteer to pick up my prints for me?
Sure, I can get them.
I can get
Thank
them.
you. Okay. Don't matter who, just don't leave them there because I can't make either one of those times. And the next thing that was on my list was Marty. Did you want to tell us when the pickup was for the GAC? So yeah, you got ahead of me by 1 second there.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody else have anything else they want to bring up?
Yes, I
mention?
do. I do.
Does that surprise anybody?
Yeah, no, it better not.
No.
The WPS meeting for November will be sharpening techniques by Brian and Jim. December will be my custom brushes and textures.
Huh?
Huh?
November is voting for your officers.
What?
Hang on a second. You guys are getting ahead of me here. Hold on.
Sorry.
The November meeting, the regular November meeting is Margie talking about your brushes.
No, that's December.
No, December
No.
regular meeting is favorite photographers and YouTubers by Brian.
Okay, I believe that's at the SWIG. Is that the SWIG on
No.
that? I'm looking at the,
I am looking at the schedule and I'm looking at the schedule for the monthly meetings.
I'm looking at the newsletter.
Yeah, it got switched.
Yeah, we
Look
switched
closer
it
to the
around.
screen, Beth.
I can't, then it doesn't work then.
What is it? Oh, I don't even have you on. I have SWIG meeting, Photoshop tools, and transfer is Brian and Margie.
That's this month.
Yeah. And then next month is sharpening technique, Brian and Jim, and then Photoshop custom brushes and textures, Margie in December.
The
That's for
regular
this-
meeting, it's, I
Oh, I'm
see.
sorry.
food
No, that's the
photography.
SWIG meeting. That's the SWIG meeting. Sorry.
The
Those
regular
are,
meeting, it says food photography props and voting for new officers.
Okay, the food photography props was not going to be at the regular meeting. We switched it out with Annie.
I don't have a list for that one. Sorry.
All right, hold on. Let me go down here. Topics for WPS meeting.
Okay, so
Cropping.
I'm looking
She's
at the
doing
newsletter.
cropping. Yeah, photo filters. Annie is
Photoshop
going to
filters
do-
by Annie, voting
Yes.
for new officers, November 14th.
right.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. What's Annie doing again?
Annie is going to do
Okay.
the filters.
Filters, that's next month, right?
That's November, correct. And that will be at your WPS meeting.
Oh, God.
Okay.
No, you cannot quit, Annie. You're stuck with this club. Okay, is all that okay, everybody?
Okay,
All right. December favorite photographers and YouTubers by Brian. That's all at WPS.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so, and the other stuff hasn't so your December SWIG meeting is you talking about your brushes and textures.
Correct.
Okay. All righty. Okay, we got that under control.
Yes.
Are you
Anything
sure?
else? Not at all. I didn't
I
know
didn't
any of
think
it
so
was
either.
changed. So I wasn't aware of any changes being made. So, okay, what's next? Here's Rex. Okay, does anybody else have anything else they want to speak or bring up? Okay. Annie, you're doing the meeting tonight, right?
I guess I'm doing part of it, yeah.
Okay. You're up.
Oh, goody. I don't even know where the hell to start. Anyway, I guess I am doing a presentation here on composition and cropping. So all I got to do is figure out how in the world to do all of this. Share screen, I guess.
If you're sharing a video or anything like that, make sure you click on the bottom down there that says to share the audio as well.
Okay.
Can I,
Share
while you-
screen, share screen I got. Now,
When you click on share screen, at the bottom of that pop-up that comes up, it says share sound.
okay, got that.
Make sure you click on that and then you're good to go.
What about that optimized for video clip?
You can if you want, it don't matter.
All right. Now I'm guessing this gets me into what I need.
And if Annie is doing videos, it helps the bandwidth if the rest of us don't have our video of us showing.
Okay, did my screen come up on there?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
I've turned mine on.
I'm going to play this video first.
By Squarespace. If you need a
Can you
website,
hear
a
it?
domain, or an online store, make it with Squarespace.
Okay, hold on. There we go.
So you're looking to improve your photography, and you're rightfully told that composition is the key to a great photo. You proceed to read up on compositional rules, and you realise that there's a lot to learn. The rule of thirds seems quite simple, but then there's the golden spiral, and you're not entirely sure how to use that. And then there's a grid that looks a bit like the third grid, but it's slightly different, and people call it the phi grid. It's got something to do with the Fibonacci sequence, but you're not quite sure. Leading lines seem quite simple, but then there are arabesques and leading lines that aren't straight, and then there's dynamic symmetry, and you're told about some maths that you don't quite understand, and you're not quite sure how to use the Baroque diagonal and the sinister diagonal and the reciprocal lines. And you're shown an Annie Leibovitz picture that seems to be overlaid with 3 of these dynamic symmetry grids in a row, and it all looks very complex and confusing. So you decide maybe it's best to look at those photos that inspired you to take up photography in the first place, and see how these rules apply to them. You examine bodies of work taken by a variety of well-respected photographers. You also look at contemporary photographic journals and a wealth of exciting imagery they offer. You look at shortlists for prestigious photographic awards, but you rarely find any examples that fit with these rules. In fact, most of these images almost seem to read like a case study of what not to do. Weren't you told not to center your subjects? Why is there so much empty space above this person? Surely this background doesn't help this subject stand out at all. And by this point, you're confused and you're overwhelmed and you really don't know where to start. Maybe you should just go buy a new lens and see if that helps you take better photos. The problem is that composition is a massive subject, and learning all the grid systems and ratios is only one tool in your visual toolbox. I'll probably make other videos focusing on specific elements of composition in the future, but for now, let me give you 8 simple tips that will hopefully get you started on improving your composition. Number 1, get your position right. Every representational photograph has 2 key factors. Firstly, the position of your subject or subjects, and secondly, the position of the photographer, and by extension, the position of the viewer. Now, changing either one of these can change how your shot feels, what it means, what story it tells. Now this may sound simple and obvious, but a lot of people really do overlook trying the same shot from different positions. Don't always default to shooting at eye level. It's how we see the world every day and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not always the most interesting angle. Once you've composed your shot, stop. Evaluate everything in your frame. Is everything exactly where you want it to be? Are there any elements or areas that shouldn't be there? If not, change it. Now this may mean just taking a side step to the left or to the right. It may mean climbing up something to get a higher vantage point. It may mean crossing the street. Be vigilant and rigorous with yourself. A small bit of effort here can mean the difference between a mediocre shot and an absolute masterpiece. Remember to shoot portrait aspect ratio as well. Portrait aspect ratio draws attention to objects in the foreground, and use landscape format for a more natural feel, as we often use our eyes this way unless we're looking up at something tall. Take multiple shots in a variety of different ways, push yourself out of your comfort zone a bit. It's all about finding that position where all the elements in your shot work together to create the feeling you are aiming for. 2. Use your phone. Most of us have a camera phone these days, and one of the biggest hurdles you have to overcome when learning how to compose and visualize an image is being able to translate what we see moving in 3D without these borders into a still, flat, two-dimensional image. Because we have two eyes, we see three-dimensionally, and so we have a greater perception of depth than a photograph can communicate. Our brains can easily filter out distracting background elements because we can see them as further away. But when you flatten that down to a 2D image, those distracting background elements can become much more prominent and take away from what you want the viewer to look at in your photograph. Using your phone screen to compose an image can be really helpful. When shooting on my Pentax 6.7, for example, if I'm using a black and white film, I'll often set my phone to black and white and I'll pinch into the screen to match the field of view that my 105mm lens offers, which is around about a 50mm equivalent on a full frame camera. This way I can see the world framed and in 2D. I can see how colours translate into tone, and I can also tap different areas of the screen to see how the image would look if exposed for the highlights or for the shadows. This isn't cheating, it's using tools at our disposal to help us get the best shot possible. Think of this more like an exercise in learning. The more we practice shooting like this, the more we'll start to naturally translate what we see into a 2D composition. It's a great learning tool if you want to improve your ability to naturally visualize a photo in your mind's eye. Number 3, beware the rule of thirds. If you look up any tutorials, articles, tips on photographic composition, you will likely be met with the rule of thirds right at the top of the list. Now, the rule of thirds is a great little shorthand to start you thinking about composition, but understand just because you place a subject at one of those intersecting points of the grid, this won't guarantee you a balanced composition. You must think about your shot as a whole. One thing I see a lot when the rule of thirds is used is too much empty space on one side of the image. It can lead to the image feeling unbalanced. And there's also more to balancing your shot than where you place elements within the frame. Tone, colour and contrast also all have weight. Darkness feels heavier than light, saturated colour feels heavier than pale hues. Areas of extreme contrast draw the eye. When composing a shot, as well as lining things up mathematically, look for where the areas of contrast are, look for where the darker tones are. Consider how your image feels as a whole. Does it feel like it's tipping too much to the left or to the right? Consider compositional rules when finding the perfect place to take your shot from, but don't go against your gut feeling. If something feels right in a certain place but doesn't immediately make sense to you, then just go for it. There's probably a reason it works that you're not yet aware of. Compositional rules are like a scientific formula. You can use them in art, but first you must know why. If you want your image to look classical, use a classical compositional technique like dynamic symmetry, but you don't need to use these all the time. Learn them, but be mindful about when you use them. Don't fall back on them just because you know them. Think firstly about what you are saying before you decide how to say it. Number 4, a nice simple one. Whenever you're setting up a shot, squint or blur your eyes. This will help you see abstract colour and shape and form. We're so used as human beings to reading the world around us that sometimes it's very difficult to take that step backwards and look at it in a more abstract way. But squinting or blurring your eyes will help you see where the contrasty areas are. They'll help you see where the more saturated and the light areas are. And this can really help guide you in setting up a nicely balanced shot. 5, think conceptually as well as aesthetically. Why are you shooting what you're shooting? What do you want your viewers to think when they see your shot? What do you want your audience to feel? Everything about the way you compose an image will tell part of a story. For example, the angle you shoot from can change how a subject is represented. Being up high looking down can detach the viewer emotionally. It becomes more of an overview shot, very matter of fact. It's a slightly godlike position, looking down on the world below. The viewer is a privileged observer and not part of the scene. But if you shoot from ground level, then you are part of the scene, and by extension, anyone viewing the shot. A low shot looking up at a subject can give that subject a sense of dominance and of power. Cropping in close to someone's face can make a shot feel more intimate and more claustrophobic. Having a subject surrounded by a lot of space can make them feel more vulnerable and more defined by their environment. Sometimes moving further away or using a wider lens can add some wider story to your shot. Decide whether context is important. Are you making social or political commentary about the subject you're shooting? You might want to consider showing something in relation to its surroundings. But when making your subject smaller in the frame, be careful, as your subject should probably still be the focal point of your image. You can achieve this by using light, contrast, colour, leading lines, or any of the other tried and tested techniques to draw the viewer's eye to your subject. Maybe employing those mathematical compositional rules will make your image feel perfectly balanced. But what if you don't want it to feel perfectly balanced? What if you want your viewer to feel uneasy because of the subject matter of the photograph? Always consider what you want your image to say before you decide how to say it. 6. Keep it simple. In slight contrast to my previous point about showing wider context, a really common compositional mistake I see is people including too much irrelevant detail in the frame. Everything in the frame should be relevant, it should be part of the story. If it's not, get rid of it. Look for simplified backgrounds, for fewer distracting elements. Try making your subject fill the frame. The act of composing a shot is in itself a form of editing. Your audience won't know what they can't see. Throwing stuff away can be difficult, but it can also be very liberating. 7. Watch the edges. Pay particular attention to the borders of your frame. Try not to cut off people's elbows or the top of someone's hair or the top of trees or buildings or whatever it is you're photographing. Distracting elements at the edge of the frame can draw the viewer's eye away from your point of focus, so try and keep them clean. 8. Work in post. Don't be afraid to also work in post-production to get that perfect composition. You can crop, you can re-level your image. Of course, it's better to do it in camera, but you have quite a lot of options in post-production. Taking time to compose your shot is important, but so is not missing the moment. The more you crop in post, the better you will become at judging composition in camera. Try testing your shot by flipping the image into a mirrored view. Try inverting the colours, try turning it upside down. Does it still feel balanced? And while cropping in post is great, also don't be afraid to Photoshop out elements that are making your shot unbalanced or creating tension by being too near the edge. If there's something brightly coloured in the background that's drawing your eye from the subject, change its colour, desaturate it, or simply clone it out. That's why the clone stamp is there. Steve McCurry does this all the time. You could argue it's cheating, and by all means follow your own set of ethics and values, but be aware that you are making things harder for yourself. It's up to you. But the key thing here is practice. There are so many compositional rules that you can't possibly consciously think about every single one every time you take any photograph. But do take time to learn them. Do take time to practice them. Learn one at a time. Go out and try practicing that particular one. And eventually you'll kind of absorb them all and they will become kind of a natural part of your intuitive visual understanding. So a massive thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. You guys are the absolute best. And also
Okay. How do I go back now? Wait.
Go back to what?
That was that video that I had. Anybody have any questions?
No, but
On that one?
I do have a comment. I really liked his
Number
use
7?
of his cell phone.
Yeah. I thought that was. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I never really thought about it. I mean, I use my cell phone to take pictures, but I never thought about using your cell phone just as you're walking along to compose a picture and then use your camera to take the picture. Or putting your cell phone in black and white to get an idea of what it's going to look like in black and white. I thought that was a pretty good idea. And
I've
something
done
that
that.
I might incorporate.
It's
Yeah,
worth
I-
doing.
Yeah, I thought he had a couple really, really good. I thought his overall video was pretty good. I mean, he actually showed like every single one of the different. We're all so used to seeing like the rule of thirds, but he showed all the other different ways. That the composition that you can do the compositions, and I thought that was really good. Plus the use of the cell phone, and of course his rule number 7 was Brian's favorite.
Yep.
Watch your edges. I mean, I just thought he touched on a lot of really good things in a very practical way.
Yeah, definitely.
I just thought he hit on like the major things that we all need to do, and he's right. After a while, there's certain things that I just look for without even thinking about it. Like the lines, rule of thirds, triangles in the compositions. Just a lot of the things that he touched on. Yeah, I've practiced over the years, and it's just become second nature.
What I really like too is the idea that rules can be broken.
Right. And and like you said, just go out there and do your compositions in a lot of different ways. Brian has always said, move to the left, move to the right, look, up, down. And he showed a lot of good examples of, what happens when you do that. So I just thought that was, he showed a lot of good ideas and things like that on the composition. I do have another video on,
I just watched, sorry, Ian. I just watched the video on the squinting, so I found that interesting that he brought that up as well. Squinting to see your colors and stuff.
yeah, I thought that one was pretty neat too. I was like squinting, never thought about that. That was one thing that I had never thought of. As far as that goes.
Guys, I dropped a link to the last video in the chat for you.
Oh, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on a second. Right here. Okay, I want to do that. So I have another short video on composition, and then I have a short one on the cropping for in Lightroom, and then I'm actually going to go into. I have a photo in Lightroom that I was going to go ahead and walk through the steps on cropping it. Wasn't quite sure how to do this tonight, but this is how I did it. So I think this next one's about 13 minutes long, something like that. I think it's a little longer video. It shows a lot of some other different ways to do some things. So let me get into there again. Go back here. Okay, got that. All right. So let me get him out of here. And this one is called Thinking Beyond the Rules. So it's a little bit, it takes you a little bit on some different things too. So This one's about 19 minutes.
Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. A lot of you have been asking me to do a video on composition, but in all honesty, I've kind of been avoiding it because there's so much out there already covering things like the rule of thirds and golden ratios and leading lines and subframing that I felt that because it's been covered ad nauseum in so many videos, I wouldn't really be adding to the conversation by covering it yet again. So I thought that instead of doing another one of those videos where we just list the rules of composition and I'm effectively just giving you a fish by getting you to pick a couple of rules to follow, I thought I'd try and teach you how to fish, to get you to think about what composition is, how we arrange those elements, and to transcend those rules over time as you learn to trust your own intuition. Obviously, when we talk about composition, we're talking about where we place the different elements within our frames, how we space them apart in a way that's pleasing, and maybe how we arrange things so that we can tell a better visual story. But I think before we do that, it's useful to take a moment and talk about how human beings take in visual information. Scientists have done studies where they've strapped special goggles onto test subjects and got them to sit in front of photographs so they can work out how do human beings take in images. These special goggles track eye movement in human beings so they could see in their test subjects what visual path they took through the image as they were taking it in, and they could also generate heat maps with the information they collected to show where human beings spent the most time looking in any given image. And they found that we're drawn to 4 things in particular: the brightest element in any given frame, the most saturated color in any photograph, the area of highest contrast or difference, and then lastly, any human faces. So why is that important? Well, if we know that human beings are drawn to bright things, saturated things, contrasty things, and human faces, we can have those as elements in our mind when we're composing our shots. Those are our subjects. Those could be potential distractions as well. So we're working out with those elements how to arrange them, and we're trying to anticipate the visual path our viewer will take through the image when we present it to them. Let's look at a couple of examples. This is an image I took on the island of Gozo a few years ago during an Easter parade through the streets. And the subject of this image is obviously this little boy and his face and expression. So automatically, human beings are going to find this face because we're drawn to interesting faces and images. But also you've got different things which are also contributing to helping us find that subject quickly and spend our time focusing on him. The one is that his robe is definitely the brightest thing in the image, so we're going to be drawn towards that. And the other is this dark cross against that white robe is probably the area of highest contrast in the image. So all those things are conspiring, meaning that no matter where we look at this image or start looking at this image, we're very quickly going to find this subject. And obviously he was having this little moment where he was kind of looking up at the light in the sky. It was a sort of religious ceremony. So all these things sort of came together to make quite a nice little moment in an image. These guys are an important part of the context, but they weren't the subject for me. He was. So if one of these faces was brighter, that would have been an issue for me. I needed all our focus to get drawn into this kid in the center. I remember being slightly worried about this wall, that it might be too bright and steal focus, but thankfully it was an off-white wall, and this area of the image had more light on it anyway, so we were drawn in. But if this was a pure white wall with too much white on it, too much light on it, and it was stealing focus away, I probably would have burned this down a little bit in post to make sure that we were still focusing where I wanted you to focus. This is an obvious one where I'm using the light to separate out my subjects in the frame and make sure you're looking where I want you to look. And there's a lot of negative space in this one. All this area I don't really care about, and I'm deliberately throwing this off balance. This doesn't really follow any traditional rule of composition. I'm really pushing everything into this bottom left corner, but I like the negative space it creates, almost abstracting this this pair who are having a conversation over drinks in a lot of negative space. And other things that are helping me is you're going to look at this bright red. It's the most saturated color in the image, plus the faces. You're going to be drawn to those. Probably these pants here are probably the brightest thing in the image, so everything is drawing your eye to the scene here. You might start to look around then and notice bookshelves in the background, and then you'll start to follow the patterns of lights along, but you'll always be brought back around to that subject because the human eye will be drawn to faces and light and saturated colors. This was an interesting one because I spotted this gentleman coming down the road and he was walking through the scene like this. So I got a little bit ahead of him and I took a series of burst shots as he moved through, trying to get his face in the light. And I did actually achieve that on this shot here. But as he passed through, I also got this shot where his face was in darkness. And I liked it more when I look back at it. I liked the fact that his hair being caught in the light here kind of mirrored the shapes in the background that the trees are casting, the shadows the trees are casting on the siding. And I like the fact that his face is just a silhouette. And I only noticed afterwards, I'll be honest, this wasn't part of my initial composition. It was when I looked at the shot later that there's also a face hidden in here as well that kind of mirrors the face of the subject. So it creates quite an interesting composition and contrast and balance. I was quite worried in this case about how bright this siding was, because I know our human propensity is going to be to look a lot in this area because it's the brightest part of the image. But I was banking on the fact that this bit of light, that the contrast between these two is really high, so that's going to draw us back. And the facial recognition, our desire to find faces and patterns, is going to draw us towards these and keep your attention framed in the part of the image that I wanted you to be looking. Once we've understood what sort of elements draw our human eye naturally, it's then a case of arranging them within space inside our frame. And traditionally, when we think about composition, we're usually talking about kind of X, Y space within our flat frame. But I think we also need to think about Z space. Even though when we're taking in images, we're usually doing it from a flat two-dimensional piece of paper or a flat digital screen, as human beings, we're able to interpolate the depth that was present for the person taking the photograph on that day. And so that's another element we need to play with, depth to our shots, that Z space, and thinking about placing our elements not just in X, Y space within our frame, but also three-dimensional space from foreground to midground to background, and what that will add to our compositions. This is an image I took in Lisbon at the beginning of last year, and I think in this case, you've got kind of 4 layers. You've got, this is your first layer, and I would include this couple as well. This is your sort of extreme foreground layer. Then maybe you've got kind of an in-between layer here where you're sort of looking at the subjects. I would call that kind of your sort of near midground. And then you've got sort of your further midground where you've got these 2 pillars with birds sitting on top, one on each, which is quite a nice little detail. And I would say that's your sort of further midground, and they're being drawn out because of that nice highlight. It's probably the brightest part of the image are the sides of those poles, and then the very background you've got here, you've got this sort of boat which is center composed in the middle. So I would imagine most people, when they look at this image, will probably start on the cheek of this lady in the foreground because there's a face and a nice highlight. They're going to move through, start to look through some of the background, come around, look at this couple. Then they're going to notice the poles in that far midground, and then they're going to finally wind up at the boat in the middle, and then take in the whole shot and see how balanced it is at the end. But by predicting the path we're going to take through those, I can anticipate how viewers will take in this image and what sort of experience they'll have moving from foreground to background. So in this image, we're just looking at light and shadow and faces because it's obviously black and white with no color. You're going to start by looking at this lady's face. I would imagine it's the first thing you're going to pick up. This is our subject. And I would put this gent here as well on that kind of foreground subject. But you'll start with her. She's got this very bright white shirt, which is going to bring us in, and this beret. So you'll look around with her. You'll come over and check out who he is. Then you'll start to move to the midground. This lady here in the highlights, you'll take her in second, I would imagine, and then you'll start to look around at the background. And the background in this is less important to me. I didn't want it to be too distracting, which is why I left so much of this stuff in negative space. But having this ceiling, which is in Covent Garden, this kind of glass ceiling, is quite an interesting thing, just to give a sense of space and place. So I would imagine most viewers would start by taking in this lady, looking at the companion, moving through, looking at the midground here, and then working their way to work out where these people actually are in the world. And the last thing to think about, which doesn't get talked about as much in composition, is the frame that we choose to put our image in, because the shape of our frame, the dimensions of our frame, can also communicate things to our viewers. For example, a 1:1 square aspect ratio might help us focus in on a single subject, but maybe using a 3:2 aspect ratio, something slightly longer, helps us create more space to our shot. I have a friend who insists on using 4:5 aspect ratios as frames for all his images because he says it gives a classical feel to his images. And that's the thing. Aspect ratios and the frames that we choose to present our images to the world are very subjective and different to every photographer, and we use them for different reasons, but it's important to think about it when we think about composition. So those are the elements we have to play with when we're composing our photographs. Those things that the human eye are drawn to, the brightest thing, the most saturated color, the area of highest contrast, human faces. Thinking in Z space from foreground to midground to background, and then thinking about the shape of the frame we want to use. And after that, it's just a case of where do we place those elements within that XY space within our frame. I know at this point it's really tempting just to find that one neat compositional rule that we can follow most of the time and stops us having to think things through as much, but I think we do ourselves a disservice if we do that too rigidly, and we might get ourselves stuck. I think it's more important to learn to trust our photographic intuition, that once we know what the elements are, we can stand in front of any given scene and intuitively work out how to place those elements so that they're well spaced and balanced and tell the story that we want to tell. So does that mean those traditional compositional rules are useless? Not at all. I still use them from time to time myself. I can round a corner in a street and find a scene, for example, and I'm trying to work out a composition, but on that day, in that moment, my intuition is failing me. I can't really work it out. That's when I'll go to something like the rule of thirds. I'll start placing elements and subjects on those thirds until a composition starts to reveal itself. But the point is that rule isn't the starting point. It's a fallback option for when my own intuition fails me. For the sake of the beginners amongst you, if you want to start with a compositional rule, the rule of thirds is really simple, and it basically says if you have any horizontal or vertical elements in your shots, try placing them on a third line. And if you have a point of interest where you want people to take a look or focus more on your image, try placing that point of interest on one of the four intersections of those third lines. But there's no magical one-size-fits-all compositional theory that we can use in every situation, and we have to learn as photographers to trust our gut. On our best days, we'll be shooting more intuitively. We'll be working out how to arrange those elements, and we won't need the rules as much, and we'll learn to even bend and break the rules to arrive at more interesting shots. I think that's how the best photographers end up composing their images after years and years of experience, is they use their intuition more. When they're framing those shots, they're thinking about, where are my subjects? Where are the things that I want my viewer to look at? How are they spaced and arranged from each other? And how is my viewer going to take this image in? What visual path are they going to take? And how does that add to the story that I want to tell? And this is where the compositional rules can trip us up or trap us if we follow them too slavishly, because perhaps, for example, I want to create a sense of unease in someone who looks at a particular image of mine. And I have two subjects in that image, and any compositional rule will tell me, well, they need to be a certain distance apart to create some balance. But I want imbalance. I want them close together. I want you to feel unsafe or uneasy looking at it. And I want a lot of negative space and mystery. The rules won't let me do that, but my intuition will allow me to create that more creative image. So it's important to make the space to play and try arranging things in crazy ways and see what sort of response it elicits from you. And don't listen to the people who are going to yell the rules at you. This breaks the rules of thirds, or it doesn't fit the golden ratio, or there's no leading lines, or one I hear all the time online, you should never send to compose subjects in your shots. I often send to compose things because in the moment it just feels like the right sort of shot to take, so I take it, and I won't let any rule bully me into not being allowed to take it, because at the end of the day, photography is still creativity before it's science. If you're starting out, there's nothing wrong with having a few of those compositional rules in your back pocket to pull out on days when you're struggling to work out how to put a frame together. I still use them from time to time. But the trick is that as you develop as a photographer, to lean more on your intuition when you're putting your frames together and working out how to space things. Because remember, the rules were made to help you. You weren't made to obey the rules slavishly. You're in charge. I'll tell you one practical thing that's really helped me to get better at composing my shots, and that's to use a wider focal length than I'm comfortable with. So a few years ago, you'll know I picked up the little Ricoh GR cameras to walk around and shoot with on the street. But the Ricoh GR is a 28mm equivalent lens, which is much wider than I usually like to shoot. I'm more of a 35 to 50mm kind of guy. However, using that 28mm has been a really good exercise for me because there's nowhere to hide compositionally. 28mm is quite wide and it's going to include a lot of subjects and you have to work out where to place them all. I can't just close the focal length down and pick out a subject. I need to wrangle all these different elements. elements. And a 28 mil on an APS-C sensor is also not going to give you a shallow depth of field, so I can hide things in the bokeh. Everything is in focus, so there's a lot to take in and a lot to arrange. So if you want a practical challenge so you can develop your composition better, then pick a wider focal length than you're used to. Put away your long focal lengths and your fast primes and your shallow depth of field, and take out something like a 24 or a 28. Don't use that shallow depth of field. Keep everything in focus and go out and try and arrange all the elements in any given scene. And I promise you, you'll learn fast. It will be frustrating. It certainly was for me. I took a load of bad images while I was going through that process. But after a bit of time, I realized I was getting better at intuitively wrangling all that information into a more pleasing order in my image. And that process taught me more about composition than any single rule of composition ever could. It taught me to trust my gut and be more patient with myself, and to take my time and be more deliberate, and to feel it out in the moment. If I'm standing there taking in a wider scene, I would just slowly move around, playing with the lines or the patterns or the light or shape or shadow until things just felt like they kind of snapped into place. And that would be a gut feel rather than adhering to a specific rule. And usually if I round a corner of a street and I find that there's definitely a shot here, that's where I'll start, arranging those background elements, starting with that background in terms of Z space. What the shadow's doing, what are the shapes doing, and then waiting in that shot, I've got that composed correctly. And then I'm watching to see who or what moves through that space, through my midground or my foreground, thinking about those things that draw attention, the brightest thing, the most saturated color, the highest area of contrast, or any human face, and then waiting to see which areas they hit where it feels right to take that shot. It doesn't feel right where they're standing here, but it does here for some reason. So I'm composing background, waiting for midground and foreground to move into place, always thinking about those things that draw our human eye. I think ultimately composition should help us to tell a better story with our images. And I use that phrase really lightly. I don't mean it literally, because I know lots of different sorts of photography don't lend themselves to literal storytelling. But what I mean is, when anyone approaches your image and looks at it for the first time, you're going to take them on a visual stroll through the elements that you've placed in the frame. And you have to make sure as the photographer that you're being deliberate about the route that you're walking their eye through your shot. And asking ourselves those good questions like the aspect ratio we use as our frame and what it communicates, where we're placing things from foreground to background to top left, bottom right, and everything in between, where we're putting light and dark and contrast and color and faces in our shots. Those are our 12 notes on the piano keyboard. And just like those 12 notes in music, with those limited elements, we can create an endless variety of stories. Start with the rules by all means, but if you're willing to go further, to take the time to think about arranging those elements as creatively as you can and trusting your gut, you stand a good chance of coming up with a way of composing your images that's uniquely you. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. If you need a new website or a domain, they're a fantastic option. I've used them myself personally as my website of choice for almost the last decade. When I present my images online, I like them to be surrounded by a very simple and minimalist design that doesn't distract from the images themselves, which is why Squarespace was the right choice for me, because they have a whole host of beautifully designed templates put together.
Okay. Now I chose those two videos because they showed two entirely different ways of, working compositions. The first guy showed you more of the traditional, all the different ways that you can compose using what they call the different rules. And this guy is more on, just the using your gut and using, a few different methods. Anybody have any comments about the second video? Anybody? Most of you have your.
I liked the second video. That was pretty good, and he had a lot of really good points in there. The only thing that I really want to say is that some of his writings on the things kind of looks like a Mike Tomlin playbook.
Yeah, on some of his photos when he was doing it. Yeah, right. I know. I thought of that too. But, I did think he had a lot of really, really good ideas. And a lot of really good information to put out there on, on composition, instead of just using, all the rules that, everybody's always using, to go by your gut and what you're seeing. And, his idea using a wide angle lens to just, I know, Brian, you've said this before and you've done it, you do it a lot, is to use just one lens and go out and shoot with one lens. And I know a 35, is it 35 millimeter you use a lot? Or is it 38?
Yeah, I use a 35 quite often, where that'll be the only lens I take with me. And just shoot everything with a 35. Or I'll go a different way and I'll shoot everything with just an 85. But it gives you the opportunity to look at things under a different perspective by doing that. And I know I've challenged people to try that, and everyone goes, okay, I'll take one lens. And then Annie shows up with her 28 to 300. Which does absolutely, I know, but I'm just being, you know what I mean? It does absolutely nothing to help you with that perspective.
Yeah.
So, if you've got a 50 millimeter, go shoot with it. Go shoot a whole event or a whole day. Or if you're going to the strip district with us, go down there and only take a 50 millimeter, shoot the whole day with just that lens. And you'll see things differently. I truly believe that. So yeah, I definitely agreed with him in saying, hey, try something different. Definitely.
Yeah, I have a 20 prime 24, and I also have a prime 50, and I have a prime 105. So something I can definitely do.
I challenge you to grab that 24 and go to one of our things that we're going to and only shoot with a 24.
I agree with one lens thing, but you have to pick the right lens.
Yeah.
I went on we were down in Wilkesburg shooting all the churches they have down there.
Yeah.
I thought, I'll bring along my fisheye and shoot the whole day with the fisheye. It's amazing how many shots you cannot do with the fisheye, because you have that specific look. You have to get those grand shots. Can't do anything detail. You have to pick the right lens when you're going to do that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, DL, especially if you're going to pick a niche lens like a fisheye. Because a fisheye
for the whole day was kind of stupid.
Yeah, a fisheye is a great lens, and it's a wonderful lens to have. But it's one of them things that, like DL said, it's not something you're going to want to choose to shoot all day with. But if I challenge you, if you got a wide angle lens that's only, or even if take your zoom, but say, hey, I'm not going to zoom it today. I'm only going to shoot it at wide.
Yeah.
And don't zoom it for the whole day. And it challenges you to do things a little different and look at things a little differently.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you did take a fisheye, it forces you to look for the things that a fisheye works for. So you might see things that you wouldn't have found otherwise if you are using something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's one lens I do not own. So, and I know fisheye just has that very unique look.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you would have to. DL, did you get quite a few good shots though with the fisheye doing that?
No, I got one or two shots at every church we went to.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that any of them were particularly good. I mean, they were decent for a fisheye, but not.
Okay, yeah, you need to share those so we can see them, please.
He's not answering.
Yeah, he got quiet real quick.
I did drop that second video. I dropped a link to that second video that Annie showed in your chat as well, guys, for you.
Does anybody else have any other comments before I go on to the next short short. The next video is very short. Because let's face it, the cropping tool doesn't, in Lightroom just does not.
Yeah, I do. One thing that I figured out, at least it became the way I like to shoot a long time ago, was, and you may have heard me use the term from time to time, shoot loose. And what I mean by shoot loose is know what the composition is you want, but always shoot a little bit further back from it to allow for, and this is where it helped me a lot, in the case of people wanting pictures vertically or wanting them horizontally or wanting them in a certain format, like instead of 8x10, 4x5 format, they would want 5x7. So if I shot everything as if it were going to be 5x7, then I wouldn't have the area that I needed for the larger aspect ratio, the more even aspect ratio, like the more squarish ones, like 4x5, 8x10. So one of the things I learned to do for myself is always shoot a little bit, I call it further back, but it's just shooting looser. That way I can change the aspect ratio and still have my subject the way they want their work delivered. When you're doing it for yourself, it's really the same thing. You might want a 5x7 for a wall, or you might want a 16x20 for a wall. Maybe you shoot it in the wider ratio, not the wider ratio, but this more square ratio. You have room for your narrower one. That's what I mean. I didn't want to go too long on that, but basically,
Nope, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody,
I would like to suggest that if you're going to pick one lens, that you give serious thought to a 135. Way back when I started shooting, we're going back to early 70s here. I only had a 135 other than my 50. And I carried that 135 everywhere and did everything with it. And it really gave me a feel for that lens. Now I can relate every shot I take to that one lens. And I don't know, I can see it in the shot no matter what I'm doing. And it gives me a comfort as to whether to go ahead and pursue the particular shot that I have set up or not. For what it's worth.
All right, any other comments before I go on to the next short video? Go back here. Get out of here. Okay, wait a minute. There we go. All right, you can go bye-bye. All right.
Cropping is one of the most basic adjustments you can make to your images. And while it's always best to get your compositions as perfect as possible at the point of shooting to reduce the need to ever crop, there are many reasons why you may need to crop your images once you get them onto your computer. And it makes sense to perform any cropping in Lightroom while you're processing your raw files. So Lightroom's crop tool is accessed by clicking on this icon here, or you can hit R on the keyboard and that brings up all of the crop controls. And by default, the aspect ratio is normally set to original. And if you click on this drop-down menu here, you'll see that there are several different options. So you can go to as shot, which is the same as original. You can create custom ratios, or there are some presets that are already dialed in here. And then to crop, all we need to do is left mouse click and drag the guide around, and then we can move it just by dragging within. It's so simple to crop, and if you're not happy with what you've done with the cropping there, we can just hit reset and it takes us back to the beginning. And if I just click on that lock icon, that allows me to crop freely, so I can crop any way that I want to. So I'm just going to click back on there. So as you'll see here, the crop tool overlay doesn't have any kind of guide in it. So down here you'll see it says crop overlay, and it's currently set to never, and there are 3 options here. We have auto, so once you left mouse click and drag, it gives you a guide, so that's whichever guide you've chosen to apply. But for me, it makes much more sense to have it set to always. So here I can see that the horizon isn't quite on that top 3rd line, so I can just drag that down and get that exactly where I want it to be. And also within the crop tool, we have another really useful tool, and that's the angle tool. So this is where if you've taken a shot and the horizon isn't straight, you can straighten it really easily. So there are 3 ways that you can work with this. You can click on auto, and as you'll see there, it's made a complete mess of things. So auto isn't really the best option, so I'm just going to hold down Control and Z to go back, or that would be Command and Z on a Mac. We also have this slider here, so we can rotate it either way. And the best way of straightening horizons is by clicking on the angle tool itself, and then you can just drag out a line along the horizon and it will straighten it up for you. So that has actually not worked there because the horizon is actually straight, and if I just drag it along the groin there, you'll see what it does. So that is the best way to straighten horizons using the crop tool. But going back to the tool overlay, there are several options here, so you don't have to stick to the rule of thirds or a grid. And if you just go to Tools, Crop Guide Overlay, you'll see we have Grid, Thirds, which is the one we're using now, Diagonal, Center, Triangle, Golden Ratio, Golden Spiral, and Aspect Ratios. But there is a much better way of cycling through those different overlays, and that's by using the shortcut O while the crop tool is active. So each time we press O, we can bring up a different crop overlay. So this one here is more about showing how the image will be cropped when you're making prints. So if you're going to make a 4x5 print or a 5x7, you can see exactly how it's going to be cropped. And another interesting thing that we can do here is by holding down Shift and O, we can actually change the orientation of different guides. So this one's not going to make a difference, this one's not. So if we go here, Shift and O, we can change the layout, and let's go to the golden ratio, and you can just move it around so it fits the image and the composition that you're currently working with. So you're not stuck with what you're given. But for me, the rule of thirds is usually the most useful option. So let's just complete this crop, make sure everything's where it needs to be. So once you're happy with everything you've done, just hit enter on the keyboard and the crop will be made. So then once you close down the crop tool, you'll see all of the normal adjustments again. And if you need to go back in, just click on to the crop tool icon or use the shortcut R, and that brings up the overlay so you can see what you've done and you can apply any changes as well. Now, just before we finish, there's one more thing that we can look at. And as you'll see there, I've brought the guide down to the bottom and I've made it landscape. It's not very often that you're going to be cropping a portrait image to landscape or vice versa, but if you ever need to, the option is there if you need it. So that is the crop tool in Lightroom.
Okay. So like I said, that's just a short video on cropping in Lightroom. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
I like that they gave all the different aspects of your, like the 4x7, 5x6, and they showed you that. Because sometimes I wonder, what does it look like? And then I crop it, and it's like, oh, well, maybe that was too much. But I like when you can see it right on the photo itself.
Yeah, that was something that I didn't know that, was in there, but it's in that, in those tools, up in a thing. And then once you get the, put your overlay on there, then you can just scroll through it and get that on there. I didn't realize you could do that. But that's, yeah, that was pretty neat that, it would show you, it could show you on there exactly, what the 5x7 is. Just scrolling through all those options. So I thought that was pretty cool. There was a lot of little different things in there that, I knew they were there, but I just hadn't used them. But I do have a photo that I was going to, run through the crop tool in Lightroom. Let me share screen again. So, oh, I'm gonna come in just a smidge. Too far. Ah, can't get it where I want it. Okay, it's gonna stay there. Anyway, I'm gonna go up here into the crop tool, and I've got a little bit bigger overlay on this. I am going to pull it. I want to change the angle, straighten it out. Actually, I'm going to reset it. Maybe not. I'm going to pull this down a little bit. Somehow I've got a dark spot on the top, on the right hand, on the corner. You can also, on the angle, you could, besides using this, the straighten tool on the side, and this, you can also go in here and type in a number that'll change the angle on it. A little bit too far. Might come up on the bottom a little bit. Get done down there. Okay. Tools up here. There's that crop overlay, the grid. What? I was looking for. Down here, I already had that on always with a crop. And I could change the ratio over here. You can see how it changes it. 16 by 10, 16 by 9, 4 by 3. Eight and a half by 11. And you can always pull these and then move your image around. That makes that an 8.5 by 11. I usually do mine in custom.
Why don't you tell them why you do it in custom? I know why, but the others may not.
I usually do it in custom because I don't worry about the specific size of mine. Because usually what I do is once I'm done with it here, is I take my
Editing, yeah.
yeah, I take my photo and take it over to Photoshop. Hopefully it'll open here. There it goes. Maybe. Yeah, it's opening. Give it a minute. Photoshop's taking its time. I have a habit of, I will do my initial crop in Lightroom, and then I will take my photo over to Photoshop. Since I'm used to cutting all my own mats anyway, I want my photo to be cropped exactly as I want it. And then I put a white border around it in Photoshop. And when I put the white border on it, dang it, I don't know what happened. I usually make it into a standard size with the white border. So whatever I have on here depends on the frame that I'm using. So say this is in around 11 by 14, I would put the white border around it to fit a, I don't know why I did take it over there. Fit into a 16 by 20 frame. So then I would cut my mat, and I usually leave a bit of a white border the whole way around it. It's just how I've done it for years. It works for me. It makes it easier whenever I'm framing things, that the photo is the same size as the frame.
Hey, Annie,
Yeah.
can you try dropping Lightroom, because Photoshop might be hiding behind it. It may already be up.
There it is. You're right. So yeah, I take it over here and I go into image, and now the image size, and this is like an 11 by 17.
We can't see Photoshop.
Annie, I think you have to share your screen with Photoshop. You're only sharing the Lightroom screen.
Huh. Okay, wait. Here we go.
Should be able to minimize that.
Hold on one second. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. All right. So this is showing at 11.246 inches by 17 at 240. I usually put my resolution at 350. Then I hit OK. That's going to change that. And now I'll go back into image and I'll go into canvas size. And I'm going to change this to 16 by 20. Now I would normally do it's a little bit different than that, but that should be work. But hold on 1 second. I'm gonna put this down to I want to
Just hit the control and the minus button at the same time. It'll make it smaller.
that's what I wanted. Control and the minus button.
Yeah.
Where's my there we go. So that gives me my image that I want. Get out of there. Stop that.
Control D.
Hell,
Just go up, or you go up to select, deselect, or hit escape. I don't know. which
Select?
one. Select.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
not doing anything.
Or what is it?
Hit it.
Control
I
D?
got it.
There you go.
escape, escape. We all escape.
We're escaped. Okay. So anyway, this is what I do to my photos. I crop them in Lightroom. I bring them over here to the Photoshop, and I put a border around it, make it a standard size, and then I take it back into Lightroom. I'll probably have to go back. I save this and then go back into Lightroom. So I gotta go back in here. But that's what I do to my images whenever I crop them. That's my way of doing them. I prefer to have, like I said, it's easier too whenever you're getting them printed if it's a standard size. So, and then it also saves me from when I send it to a printer, I don't have to worry about them, like them changing the size of my print, them cropping it at all, because I've already cropped it, but I put a border around it that makes it into a standard size. So does that make any sense to anybody?
Yeah, that's the way I do mine.
Yeah, I do it that way as well.
So that's the way I've done it for years, because there's just so many times that when I crop something, it's not a normal size. And if I do it to a normal size, it's not always cropped the way I want it. So I crop it the way I want it, and then I just make an outside border around it to fit into a standard size frame. It's just what I do. It's how I do it. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I think the cropping tool is pretty easy to use in Lightroom.
Why did you go to Photoshop, Annie? What advantage is there? Just
Photoshop will put that border on it
okay.
a lot easier than, I don't think I can put that white border around it whenever in Lightroom. But I usually do all my post-processing in Lightroom for the most part.
Okay. How big of a white border do you put on it? How do you control that?
Just how I showed you, you have to go into the image
Okay.
in Photoshop, and you have to change it. So
You can, I'm sorry, when you go into the canvas like that, you can actually change it in inches or pixels. You can put any color you want on it, any size you want on it. I do mine a little bit different. I go ahead and I crop it, and I know let's say 1 inch all the way around. So I'll make mine a little bit smaller and then I'll take it in Photoshop. Well, I do mine in Photoshop anyway. Then I go ahead and I go in there and I'll put 1 inch white or black or whatever color I want that border to be. And I make it in inches, or if I don't want to do inches, I may do in pixels, you know, like 15 pixels. So it'll come out to be the size I want. If I want an 8 by 10, it'll come out to an 8 by 10.
What's 8 by 10? 8 by 10 is the size of the picture, including the border or excluding the
Yes,
border?
yes, including the border, the
Okay,
8 by
okay.
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering how that worked. Okay.
I mean, just like the one that I did, the photo was one size. The photo was like 11 by 17. But I made it with the white border. I made it into a 16 by 20. So,
So it's two
because-
different ways.
so there's a couple different ways, and like I did mine in inches. Like she said, there's also an option on there to do it in pixels. I don't use pixels. I prefer to do it in inches because that's what I'm used to working with, you know, as far as whenever, because of the framing that I do all the time, I'm used to working in inches. And not by, you know, with my mats and the frames and everything like that, they're all in inches. So I just make my photos to fit usually to fit the frame that I'm working with. So just depends on how I've cropped it, on how big of a border I put on it. But that's what works for me. I just wanted to show you guys that, you know, what I do as far as cropping goes. But I always, whatever I do, whatever photo I have, I always crop it to what the photo itself looks the best. I don't try to fit it into some kind of a standard size. Unlike Rex, whenever he did his photos, because he was doing portraits, people were expecting to get standard size portraits. So Rex would crop his according to what size photo that his customers wanted. You know, so he would have to, like he said, when he takes his photos, he takes them a little wider, or, you know, gives himself a little bit of room to work with so that he can crop it according to what the customer themselves want. So it's all in what you want to do on how you crop your images. I mean, with me, I don't usually do people. Every once in a while I do. So I've done the same thing that Rex has done. I've taken the photos, especially whenever it's been a family, you know, with a wider shot, so that I can make them into a standard size, because they're going to want to get them printed out in a 16 by 20, you know, 11 by 14, 8 by 10, 5 by 7, you know, and you have to be able to make adjustments for that. So I hope I gave somebody some really good information tonight. I thought the 2 videos that I picked were pretty good with sharing different ways of composition. And I think both guys had some really good ideas. And I hope you all come away with something was interesting.
Did a great job. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Annie. I thought it was very
Thank you.
interesting. I like
Nice,
that.
Annie. Very nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What'd you think, Linda?
This is stuff that I know nothing about, so it's fascinating, and I've got a lot of work to do, and I look forward to winter when I'm snowed in. I'll have something to do for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and I just, like I said, I picked the two videos. They were both on composition, but they were both showing how to do composition in 2 different ways, and you know, to learn a couple of different ways of doing things. And there's not one right way to do it. So
Okay.
I enjoyed the videos. I'm going to watch them again. I thought there were a lot of good tips in there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Annie.
You're welcome, Brian.
I have a couple of things I'd like to say real quick. Always, Brian. This is October, Bob. You
Yes.
have tips this month. It's a reminder.
Right.
All right, and I also want to let y'all know for some, if you really want some good photo ops, Fort Ligonier Days is this weekend.
Hmm.
So come and join us. They'll have the parade on Saturday. You can find out all the information, the different booths that'll be up. And great street photography. But like I said, there'd be a lot of different subjects to be able to take pictures of. That's it for me.
No. All righty.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
How was Bushy Run?
It was good. I got some makeup. The makeup was very good from your store, and the visitors really enjoyed the hayride. I mean, the different stations of the hayride. So I did a little acting as well.
Yeah. So when are we going to get to see the pictures of you and your makeup at your station?
You know what? I don't think I took any. I don't think anybody took any. It was so bad that no, nobody took any. So, but anyway, the makeup was good. It washed off very easily. Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I knew we had something for you to put on. So
Right. Yeah, it was good. It was good. It was fun.
good. For any of you that don't know, this past Saturday, Bob participated in Bushy Run, was doing a haunted hayride type thing, and he was pretending to be a deranged doctor.
Right. Right. I chopped off the wrong foot. The patient died. The patient died. Blood loss. Blood loss.
Blood loss.
Infection.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah.
when did you do that? You were with me on Saturday at the Schwartz farm.
Right. Yeah. After
You're a
that,
busy guy.
this was in the evening.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
10. So
All right.
it was good. It was fun.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I needed Bob there in case I happened to slip and fall.
That Bob stopped in to see me a couple of days before that, so he could pick up some makeup for his debut as a deranged doctor.
Right. Right. I'm still deranged. Don't forget. I'm still deranged. Doesn't leave you.
All right. Margie, did you want to do any critiquing tonight?
Oh, we could.
You got a few minutes yet?
All right, let me get back to Zoom. Let me get out of this. Let me share screen. And share. Y'all see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me just minus out. All right. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that was one I put up this afternoon.
Okay. I'm going to try to get one of each person's. Do you want that one? That one?
Oh, no, this is for your critique. You do what you want with it. It's up to you guys. Take shots. That's why it's there.
Well,
Maybe
let's
find out what I did wrong.
all right. Come on. All right, here we go. Okay, remember, is it in focus?
Yes.
I like the
think-
framing.
Trees seem to outline it very nicely.
Mhm.
I'm missing the trunks, and you know how I feel about that, but that's my opinion only. I like the fall colors. How is the contrast?
It'll make a good kaleidoscope.
It's something, by the way, it's something Marty does, and it's very nice. She's gonna have to do another one just to show everyone what she's talking about.
Yeah,
How was the depth of field?
depth of field looks pretty good. The only thing, the one thing that I'm seeing that's bothering me is to the right of the silo in the sky, yeah, that cloud right there, up a little bit, Margie, up right there. Just does not, it looks like it's an off color. Looks like you made an adjustment in the clouds, and that's bugging me.
Yeah, let me take a close look at my own screen here.
Yeah, because it looks just like the under part of a dark cloud, because you've got some dark clouds over here too.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's just the color of it just looks like it's off a little bit. I mean, I realize it's a darker cloud, but it just looks like it's, yeah. Yeah,
I
like
think that's just
over,
because it's because of the sizing for the web.
could be.
But I like the color of that cloud better than the blown out cloud to the left of the silo.
Yeah,
Up
this,
there, yeah.
yeah, definitely. You don't have
Yeah,
any.
the highlights need turned down.
Yeah.
I like
Well,
the
eventually-
overall composition.
Eventually, I'll be putting up some more of that day, and you'll see even more of that going on in the clouds.
Yeah, it was a very funny day. It was like partly sun, partly clouds, and overly cast.
Yeah.
I could
you can
appreciate
see them.
Rex's clouds. It was tough to kind of focus and the exposure and so forth. It was tough. It was, and that's mostly the cloud color, the gray clouds and bursts of sunshine here and there. But it was a mixture of a day. Let's put it that way.
Where is this at?
That's the new
Schwartz
land
Farm.
trust, Westmoreland Land Trust. This is the one that Jim Murphy requested some photographers because they're trying to establish conservation sites. This is one of them, as well as one over across from Wilmington Xavier. I used to be a convent there, but now they have about 200 acres of land they're going to use for conservation.
Okay.
This one they wanted to make hiking. They're going to make hiking trails, and I asked the Betsy, in the fall this will be fantastic. I mean, if you get up there, you could go through the fence on the left hand side. You could go through the fence and just walk up the trail, and there's a beautiful a nice hill with overlooking some valleys. It's going to be gorgeous when there's full colorization of the trees. So she said anyone is welcome to go there.
Where exactly is this though? I mean, what?
This is about 3 miles from Greensburg. It's on Route Old 66.
Oh, it's off Old 66?
Right, yeah. But Jim gave instructions how to get there. It's not that hard to get to. It's right, not too far from town. But it was.
It looks familiar. That's why I like. It looks familiar. That's why I was. But that is right on Old 66.
Well, you have to kind of get on 66, and there's like a side road, and you go up a little hill, a little crest. But Jim could give the instructions, and you could Google it. It's very easy to get.
Okay.
There.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
It definitely looks familiar. It's nice. Well, I like the framing, definitely.
I like the framing too. The little pumpkin here, I would like to see it toned, my opinion, I'd like to see it toned down a little bit because my eye keeps going to that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I think one of the things that I really need a before and after on this one, because the whole thing was to celebrate the season, And there were a lot more of those kinds of things around. In fact, a lot of work went into this because Bob can verify that there were pink ribbons all over the place. And I took all the pink ribbons out. The barn at that point, I think, had been closed. So I guess they didn't want people in there. And they had pink ribbon, the way you would see the yellow and black police line ribbons strewn out to keep you out of the area. So I photoshopped out a lot of pink ribbon over the last couple of days.
Okay.
I'll put it. I'll
Good
also
job,
put it.
Rex.
But
Good job.
Yeah, great job. You did catch the fall colors very nicely
Yeah.
too, because that's exactly what I've been saying. So you've done a great job with that. I do like the shadows over here, the way they come in.
Yeah.
And overall, in my opinion, it's fairly nice. So
By
it's
the way,
something
the-
that I want to go to.
The fall colors are really coming in up around Lake Lynn Run.
Yep. All right.
Very nice.
Let me see here. Oh, come on, Margie, wake up. Where is my?
Click on the top up there where it says image. Up on the top.
Just takes me a second tonight, I guess. Okay.
There you
We've
go.
already critiqued this one. And I want to catch somebody, this one here. Have we critiqued this? I don't think so. Did we?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Start off with something great.
I really like the
opinion.
I really like the lighting that he used on there because I can really see his eyes.
I agree. Y'all have to take this one over because I don't do portraits of any sort.
I like the look on the young man's face. I think it's very, I don't know, very comforting. I mean, I think it represents the man quite well. What I find is the white of the T-shirt is what I see constant, and
Yeah.
it dominates the frame. And I think if I'm going to do anything, I'd tell the young man go buy a blue T-shirt in order to tone that down. And I wish the eyes were a little lower in the frame.
Yeah. Just a little too high. But overall, I think it's a good image.
Yeah, I do too.
Margie, was his hand cropped off there on the bottom? Or is
No.
that just the way I'm looking at it?
Just the way you're looking at it.
Okay, it's just the way it is on the screen, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think his hand was chopped off.
Yeah. I need to, when I get back, I need to put it as a full screen. Oh, gosh, Margie, you just don't have anything right tonight. Let me tell you. All right.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I like the image.
I think it exemplifies a guy that age who's confident and a little bit of swagger to him.
Yes. Yeah, but I think I agree. I think maybe he cropped the top off a little bit too much.
That was, don't know if we did this. We did this one, I thought, last time. We already did Rex's. Let them come back. You know, y'all need to take a good look at some of the photos, and I do too. And let's, you know, pick out one and you do it on your own. And nobody's going to be offended. It's a way to teach each other how to better your photography. Is we're not criticizing, we're just giving you ideas and our opinion on what we do like.
I just have to get them off my card.
You what?
She has to get them off her card. Off the card and onto the
Okay.
computer.
Okay, okay.
You know, the same thing I did this afternoon.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Okay, here's one of Suzanne's. I don't know why I can't go to full screen. What am I doing wrong where I can't get to full screen?
It is full screen.
That is full. Full
Yep.
screen on mine is usually, I don't have all my junk yet up here and here.
Yeah, but
The image is still full screen.
yeah, the image is full screen.
Yeah, the image is full screen. Okay. Is it in focus?
Yes.
I think so too.
It's a
How's
nice,
the contrast?
it's a
Very
nice
good.
image, except for that guy on the left.
Yep.
Get rid of him.
Yeah, a little bit more shallow depth of field could have taken him out a little bit, or just wait and tell him to move out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the depth of field could have been better as far as I'm concerned, because that's not so bad over here, but it's not the greatest. And over here, I would like to have seen a more of a shallow of a depth of field, because he is very distracting. How about the lighting?
Lighting on her is beautiful.
Isn't it? I agree. That light just really makes her stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything in the photo that should have been left out? I think I just went over that.
It would have been nice. It would have been nice to crop and see her, just her face from the shoulder up, and then try to get the guy out and just center on her face, because she has that expression, that look that you wonder, what is she thinking about? What is she looking at?
Yes.
And I think if you could just focus on the face,
Yeah.
and because the dress is very distracting, the gentleman is very distracting. So if you could, Suzanne, if you could crop up to the face or to the shoulder, and
Yeah.
just to look at her face, center her face, and I think it'd be more dramatic, and maybe in black and white as well.
Oh, I like the color of it. But then I'm not, you know, black and white would be great to take a look at both ways.
Yeah, I posted that one because I did like, you know, the look of her face, like the colors. I did think about the background, but being, you know, it was at the Renaissance Festival, I thought the background kind of
Oh yeah.
told a little story about where she was. But, you know, I agree with all those comments too. It was a hard shot to take because she was walking by pretty fast, you know, and I took the shot. She didn't know I was taking it, so, and I couldn't get the guy out of the photo, so I kind of stuck with what I had. But I don't know. I posted it mainly because of the colors in it.
I like the colors, yeah. But I like her expression on the face an awful lot.
Yeah, she's a really beautiful person.
She really is.
Maybe a different angle.
Now, Suzanne, did you say she was walking?
Yeah, I was sitting down on the ground almost, and she walked in and snapped it.
Okay.
RG, can we go back up to Rex's photo? reason why is I couldn't, my audio died.
Okay, hold on, let me go back.
It was
one
on top. I
more.
don't know where it went.
Yeah, I was under critique. Here, this
Yeah,
one.
okay, can you zoom in on it, please? I have this is a question on anything.
What part do you want me to really zoom in on?
Right there, that's perfect, that's even better. Okay,
Okay,
if you look at the ridge of the roof, there's a white line that separates the tree from the roof. You also see
Yes.
that white line on the right of the silo, and you also see it at the top of the silo itself, especially on the right. What is causing that, and how do you get rid of it? Anybody?
are you talking about the halo line, the white,
Yes, right there.
right here, the halo?
Exactly.
Going, and right here is that halo. I know that if you over sharpen, that you can get the halo effect, and there are other ways. What are the other ways?
Chromatic aberration.
Yeah, and that's one of the first things I do when I do Lightroom, when I bring them into Lightroom. So you want to get
Yeah,
one?
they were removed, but that doesn't mean that the lens is that perfect. So even when you remove them, sometimes that can show up. But I'm puzzled too. I'd have to look at the roof from a couple other angles to see. But
I think the ridge itself was the same color as the roof, as I recall.
But
that's not a reflection.
But I'll bet that that spot along the top is getting hit by all the sun that's
Yeah.
there, and it's just simply blown out.
yeah, Beth, I think you hit it on the head, because look at the silo and then look at the shadow of the silo. That sun is coming from behind, which is why we have all that transparency in the leaves.
Yeah.
The shadow comes towards us, which
Mhm.
means that the sun is hitting right off the top edge.
But this part here, I do not think is caused by, it's not caused by the sun.
I don't know.
Right in here.
I don't know.
I can't see it being caused by the sun. If so, then it would have been some on this side too. But no, even if the sun was hitting it, this part here, I can see this part here being hit by the sun. But not this part.
Okay, looking for a solution.
Well,
right,
you know,
guys.
I'll get more into it in tips and see if I can't find something else.
Oh, you know what? Go to the one to the right. Just snap the to the right. Get the next picture up. Take a look at it from there. Then get closer to that and see. There's
Yeah,
that
it'll-
one.
Yeah, there's not one. There's not one.
Okay.
It's
No,
gotta be the sun then.
yeah. I still
All
don't
right.
think it was a sun on the last one on the halo. But that's my opinion.
Well, no, it could be. I mean, it could be artifact.
I would like to have seen on this one here, you sort of, we don't need this, but over here, we need more than just limbs sticking in. Am I the only one who has a problem with that? I mean, that's just me, because, I mean, I got a limb, and where's the rest
Yeah.
of the tree? You know, give me a trunk.
I'll be able to satisfy you because there are more yet to put up, and I definitely will have some tree trunks for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
But am I the only one who feels that way? I mean,
Depends on the image.
Yeah.
well, yeah, we did see an image where it actually was able to frame his last one, and that was fine. But when I see something like what's right over here,
Let me tell you, there are wires that are hanging off of that thing that you don't even see. The wires are gone. The pink ribbons are gone. I'll
Yeah.
make sure I put some befores in.
okay. Yeah, that's fine. I just thought if you stepped over a little bit, we'd get rid of this. Although, Beth, I do like my
I'm on a
Beth.
bank. I'm on a bank. The house right as soon as the front end of the house goes right down a bank. And for me to get to where I was with a pack on my back and Bob, tell him.
I was his point person because I was afraid he would slip.
He was ready to grab me. It was
because of his knee brace. So, but he did well. He walked up and down, and he was able to manage. So I didn't have to save him.
No, but this is where I had to go in order to get what I got. That's the only way I can say it. And there were compromises all along the way.
It's really
But anyway,
sharp image and good colors, you know. Just love the colors. I want to go there. Annie, Marty.
Okay.
All right, I can't go until after next Wednesday.
That's fine with me.
It works for me.
The thing is, Betsy, who is the executive director, mentioned that we could go, but just I think this archery. I'm not sure when archery season is in vogue, but
that's why.
It's in right now.
Is it right now? Okay.
Yeah, Marty knows.
Well, we're a vest because I went all the way to the back of the property and I saw this strange thing. I said, "What the heck is that? An artifact from an old rock?" And I got up closer, and it was a hunter's tent.
Oh my gosh!
No,
So send Annie in first.
They won't like you trumping in the woods during.
Does that send Annie in first because she's packing or what?
You can go on Sundays. There's no hunting on Sundays.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It's when the leaves turn, there's a beauty. It's gonna be beautiful. So
And
take
it'll
advantage of
go
it.
fast. Yeah, it'll go real fast. Okay, that'll do it tonight. It's after 9 o'clock. And I'm gonna stop sharing.
Good job, everybody.
Good.
It was very interesting tonight.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you,
Thank
Annie.
you very much.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for all your participation. Annie, thanks for the meeting tonight.
You're welcome.
I guess that's about it. I don't really have anything else.
oh, we got an IHOP coming up.
We have an IHOP coming up.
Yep. Y'all need to make that.
Yes, you do.
That is actually that's really the next thing that is coming up is the IHOP on the 20th.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
if
save
you
me
got
a seat. I'll be there.
That's a Thursday night. So,
if y'all got pictures down at the Greensburg Arts Center, don't forget to pick them up.
On Monday.
Monday and Tuesday, 10th and 11th. Or no, I'm sorry, today's the 10th. 17th and 18th next week. All right. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Y'all have a good night. I'm going home.
Hey, signing off.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
It all.
Good night, all.
Good night.